What does patriotism imply in everyday life, civil life? With illustration and justify answer. Patriotism demands readiness. True patriotism in context of defense service is cause for persons. True patriotism. Actually, who loves his country and is ready to sacrifice his all, including his life, for her cause, and wholeheartedly works for welfare of this motherland. But in civil life, patriotism can have a much broader meaning at civil level. One can look patriotism in the context of internationalism and humanism. Patriotism lends a great dimension to a man's personality, and it exalts him to rare heights of nobility. A patriot is not a person confined within the narrow limits of his family, his intimate circle of friends. Patriotism is enlightened us about our paramount our nations, our motherland, paramount duties, as dear and scared as our own mother. But in civil life, patriotism can have a much broader meaning. In civil life, one can look patriotism in the context of internationalism and humanism. Patriotism lends a great dimension to a man's personality. It exalts him to rare heights of nobility. It exalts a rare height of nobility. A patriot is not a person confined within the narrow limits. Patriot is not a person narrow limits of his family and his intimate circle of friends. Narrow limits of his family and his intimate circle of friends. Patriotism enlightens us about our paramount duties. Patriotism lends a great dimension of man's personality and exalts him. Patriot is not a person confined within the narrow limits of his family and his intimate circle of friends. Narrow limits, family and intimate circle of friends. Patriotism enlightens us about paramount duties to our nations and motherland. As dear, sacred, our mother. Discuss how it leads. Discuss how it leads negative emotion and undesirable behaviorism. Yes, how can it manage and control? Anger is a harmful negative emotion. It is injurious to both personal life and work life. Anger. Anger is a negative emotion which is outcome of lack of emotional intelligence. Lack of emotional intelligence. It is also an outcome of biased attitude, lack of rational thinking. Anger often leads to an undesirable behavior both in work and personal life, and also it generates feeling of a retribution. Following examples. An investigation officer could not find a breakthrough in a sensational case. If the SP admonishes him by citing incapability, then the crime branch officer, due to anger, would admonish his subordinate. Don't create an unpleasant atmosphere. Would hamper the investigation further. Would in turn create an unpleasant atmosphere. Would hamper the investigation. Likewise, if the same officer on the going to home behave rudely. Likewise, the same officers on going to home behave rudely with family members can even create disharmony in a home. Anger makes a person impolite and it would aggravate the social environment. So anger makes various and create an unpleasant atmosphere. Hamper investigation. Likewise, the same officer on going to home behave rudely. Anger can the students shape countries to contest elections. Anger can be managed and controlled by following steps. जितना जल्दी हो सके students more and more join politics, contest elections, even parliament. 50-20 students MP independently will win. So more job will commenced, more job forgery, just scam. They're talking about every time jobs. The farmer candidate will contest the winning MP MLA. So they also raise the issue. So everybody presentation represent from the country's democracy process. Anger can be managed and controlled by the following steps. By joining professional courses for team activities. Role play games it helps one in identifying one's behavior and developing quality of emotional intelligence. Anger can be managed by joining professional courses for team activities, role play games. It helps one identifying one's behavior and developing quality of emotional intelligence. Help of psychiatrist could also be sought at times. Also, practice of meditation and yoga has proved to be effective in anger management. Anger would lead to disaster is a universal truth was clearly noticeable from the history of mankind in the form of wars. Control is negative emotion the world to see peace everywhere. World to peace. Anger would lead to disaster. Universal truth is clearly noticeable from the history of mankind. The form of wars, and faster the people control these negative emotions, the better it would be for the world to see peace everywhere. Help psychiatrist also practice meditation yoga. He has proved to be effective in anger management. By joining professional course for team activity, identifying one behaviors, developing quality. So anger may be the maybe destroy one's personal lives, social life, and work life everywhere. Impact on the family behaviors can even create a disharmony in home everywhere.